there is something happening in America.
Just how far are you willing to go before you stand up and say no more to the federal government?
About the biggest restructuring we have ever seen, not just of the global economy, but of the global order as a whole, of the New World Order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
We're both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
Whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
Folks haven't been reading the Bible.
The convergence of globalization and technology has created a new brand of terrorism. There were persons who, for whatever reason, came to view their home country as the enemy.
The people in Washington, D.C. haven't represented what was on the American people's minds for a long, long time. They are the most disassociated, discombobulated, disconnected people on this planet. And they necessarily had to do that for all the violations of the Constitution that they've done.
Most Americans would agree that it would be prudent to have a plan to provide for the continuity of government and the rule of law in case of a devastating terrorist attack or natural disaster. A plan that provides for the cooperation, the coordination, and continued functioning of all three branches of the government. The Bush administration tells us they have such a plan. They introduced a little sketchy public version that's clearly inadequate and doesn't really tell us what they have in mind. But they said, don't worry, there's a detailed classified version. But now they've denied the entire Homeland Security Committee of the United States House of Representatives access to their so-called detailed plan to provide for continuity of government. They say, trust us. Trust us, the people who brought us Katrina, to be competent in face of a disaster. Trust us, the people who brought us warrantless wiretapping and other excesses eroding our civil liberties.
The only way they can pass this bill is by creating and sustaining a panic atmosphere. That atmosphere is not justified. Many of us were told in private conversations that if we voted against this bill on Monday, that the sky would fall, the market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 points the first day, another couple thousand the second day, and a few members were even told that there would be martial law in America if we voted no.
Call it the incredibly shrinking dollar.
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
There's a dollar crisis out there, and people's money is being stolen. People who have saved, they're being robbed. I mean, if you have a devaluation of the dollar at 10%, people have been robbed at 10%. But how can you pursue this policy without addressing the subject that somebody's losing their wealth because of a weaker dollar? And it's going to lead to higher interest rates and a weaker economy.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it.
This national feeling is good. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?
Is that I represent real hope for change. On economics, a departure from tax and spend economics to invest and grow. But before I can do that, I must challenge the American people to change.
There is something happening in America.
But the more you learn and the more you look at history, this weekend I was reading about the crash of 1907 and how that thing was controlled and what came out of that and came to the Fed. I mean, we're repeating the same mistake, and it was always to give these private individuals control, almost a fourth branch of government or a separate tree of our economic system.
There is something happening in America. There is something happening in America.